Welcome to our exploration of Jules Maigret's most captivating cases, where crime meets psychological intrigue. Created by Georges Simenon, Maigret is not just a detective. He's a man who dives into the minds of both victims and criminals, uncovering the hidden truths behind seemingly ordinary lives. In this compilation, we'll walk through 15 unforgettable mysteries, each brimming with suspense, emotion, and the unique charm of Simenon's storytelling. From small towns to bustling Paris streets, let's follow Maigret as he unravels intricate plots and delivers justice with his signature patience and insight. 1. Pietr the Latvian, 1931. This first Maigret novel opens with Inspector Maigret intercepting a message warning that Pietr the Latvian, an internationally known criminal, is arriving in Paris. Maigret heads to the train station, prepared to track the suspect. However, things quickly spiral when a body, matching Pietr's description, is found on the train. This discovery complicates matters, as the real Pietr is later spotted in a luxury hotel, very much alive. The investigation takes Maigret through various social circles, wealthy elites, gangsters, and small-time criminals, until he unravels that the man posing as Pietr is using an assumed identity. The plot thickens as Maigret uncovers that Pietr's double life is tied to his personal demons, including a volatile relationship with his brother. Throughout the case, Maigret displays his trademark patience and ability to understand human motivations. In the end, the detective resolves the mystery by exposing the fraud and delivering justice, setting the tone for the many cases to follow in the series. Next, The Yellow Dog, 1931. Set in the small seaside town of Concarneau, this novel begins with an attempt on the life of Monsieur Mostagain, a local wine merchant. As Maigret investigates, other strange events follow. A prominent townsman disappears, another is poisoned, and an unknown yellow dog is spotted roaming the town. Maigret methodically questions the town's residents, noting their intricate personal relationships and long-held grudges. Tensions rise as the community begins to suspect that an outsider, possibly the yellow dog's owner, is behind the incidents. However, Maigret's instincts tell him the solution lies closer to home. He uncovers a web of secrets, including infidelity and financial misdeeds, implicating those who seem beyond suspicion. In a climactic twist, Maigret proves that the seemingly random events are part of a calculated scheme. His unhurried investigation uncovers the motivations behind each crime, exposing the fragility of the town's social order. This case exemplifies Maigret's ability to sift through layers of deception and reach the human truth beneath the surface. Another famous case is narrated in The Death of Monsieur Gallet, 1931. In this case, Maigret is called to investigate the murder of Émile Gallet, a travelling salesman, whose body is discovered in a hotel room. The investigation soon reveals that Gallet led a double life. In one version, he was a respectable family man, and in the other, a deceitful individual connected to questionable activities. As Maigret probes deeper, he discovers that Gallet's financial situation was much worse than his family believed. He had been engaging in fraudulent dealings to support his lifestyle, and the pressure of maintaining appearances took a heavy toll. The detective also finds that Gallet's relationship with his son was strained, with the young man growing resentful of his father's failures. Maigret's investigation leads to an intricate motive behind the crime. Gallet's lies and broken promises catch up with him, resulting in his murder by someone close to him. This case highlights Maigret's ability to piece together the psychological puzzle of his suspects, identifying the emotional currents that drive them to act. 4. The Lock at Charenton, 1933. This case takes place in a sleepy town near a canal, where a lockkeeper's wife, Aline, is found murdered. When Maigret arrives, he is greeted by a community where everyone seems to have something to hide, from the lockkeeper to their neighbours. As he interviews witnesses and potential suspects, Maigret discovers that many locals dislike the victim, describing her as quarrelsome and controlling. As Maigret peels back the layers of the town's dynamics, he encounters a complex web of relationships, including an affair involving Aline and a local farmer. Suspicion shifts back and forth between different residents, but Maigret's intuition tells him the crime was not premeditated, but born out of passion or desperation. By patiently gathering small clues, snippets of conversation, observations of behavior, and hidden tensions, Maigret reconstructs the night of the crime. In a suspenseful reveal, the detective identifies the murderer and explains how the crime arose from long-simmering emotional conflicts. This case exemplifies Maigret's ability to read between the lines of human behavior to uncover the truth. 5. The Shadow Puppet, 1934. This novel revolves around the murder of a businessman named Guillaume Serre, found dead in a Parisian hotel room. Maigret is called to investigate the case, which seems straightforward at first glance. Serre had many enemies due to his ruthless business practices. However, as Maigret begins interviewing his colleagues, friends, and family, the case becomes far more complicated. Maigret uncovers a hidden aspect of Serre's life. He maintained multiple identities, each serving a different role in his business and personal dealings. As the detective follows the trail of clues, he realizes that the victim's seemingly perfect family life is a sham, built on lies and manipulation. Serre's wife, in particular, harbors resentment and secrets, making her a prime suspect. The key to solving the case lies in understanding the relationships between Serre and the people around him. Maigret's empathetic approach allows him to gain the trust of reluctant witnesses, slowly piecing together a story of betrayal and revenge. In the end, Maigret exposes the truth, demonstrating how Serre's deceitful lifestyle caught up with him, leading to his tragic end. 6. Maigret and the Headless Corpse, 1955. In this grisly case, a dismembered body is found floating in a canal with the head missing. With few clues to work from, Maigret begins by investigating the canal area and questioning the locals. The trail leads him to an isolated bar run by an enigmatic woman named Aline Callas, who seems to know more than she's letting on. As Maigret digs deeper, he discovers that the victim had been involved in a troubled relationship with Aline. Their volatile affair was marked by intense emotions, jealousy, and violence. Aline's evasiveness and refusal to cooperate with the investigation only fuel Maigret's suspicions. Maigret's methodical approach uncovers a tragic story. The victim was killed during a heated argument, and Aline, out of desperation, dismembered the body to conceal the crime. Rather than relying on forensic evidence alone, Maigret solves the case through careful observation and by gaining an understanding of the psychological state of those involved. This case demonstrates Maigret's unique investigative style, solving crimes by immersing himself in the emotions and motivations of his suspects. 7. Maigret's Revolver, 1952. This case begins with an unsettling incident. Maigret's revolver is stolen from his home. Soon after, the detective learns that a young man named Alain Lagrange had visited him earlier and is now missing. Alarmed, Maigret sets out to find Alain, fearing the young man might use the stolen weapon in a crime. During his investigation, Maigret discovers that Alain has become involved in a tangled situation involving blackmail and betrayal. Alain's father, an English diplomat, is being blackmailed, and the young man wanted to take matters into his own hands. Through interviews with Alain's estranged family and close associates, Maigret pieces together the emotional turmoil Alain is facing, including feelings of abandonment and resentment toward his father. Maigret's search takes him across Paris, where he finally catches up with Alain just in time to prevent a tragedy. In the end, the detective resolves the case not through force, but by offering Alain compassion and understanding. This case exemplifies Maigret's humane approach to justice, focusing not just on solving the crime, but also on preventing further harm. 8. Maigret and the Wine Merchant, 1970. In this case, Oscar Chabut, a wealthy and arrogant wine merchant, is found shot to death in a quiet alley. Chabut was known for his unscrupulous business practices and his numerous affairs, making Maigret's task of identifying suspects both challenging and intriguing. As Maigret questions Chabut's employees and associates, he uncovers a long list of people who had reasons to hate the victim. Maigret also learns that Chabut kept meticulous records of his illicit affairs, a habit that caused tension in his personal life. The investigation reveals a complicated love triangle involving Chabut, his wife, and one of his mistresses. Despite the many suspects, Maigret's sharp instincts guide him to a surprising conclusion. The killer is someone close to Chabut, acting out of a combination of jealousy and revenge. By patiently untangling the victim's complicated relationships, Maigret is able to bring the culprit to justice, exposing the emotional motivations that led to the crime. 9. Maigret in Montmartre, 1951. This case begins with two separate but connected deaths. A stripper named Arlette is found strangled in her apartment, and later a countess is discovered dead under similar circumstances. Both women had been involved in Paris's Montmartre nightlife, leading Maigret to focus his investigation on the district's underworld. Maigret's investigation reveals that Arlette overheard two men planning a murder at her nightclub, which ultimately led to her own death. The case draws the detective into Montmartre's colourful yet dangerous world, where he encounters a range of characters, from petty criminals to society elites. The turning point comes when Maigret identifies one of the two men Arlette overheard, a disgraced aristocrat involved in drug trafficking. Following the clues further, Maigret uncovers a conspiracy linking the Countess's death to financial crimes and blackmail. In the end, Maigret's ability to piece together seemingly unrelated events helps him solve both murders, capturing the criminals responsible. This case showcases Maigret's skill in navigating both high society and the criminal underworld with equal ease. 10. Maigret and the Saturday Caller, 1962. Maigret receives an unusual visitor on a Saturday evening, a man named Leonard Planchon. He confesses that he feels an uncontrollable urge to kill his wife, Renée, and begs Maigret to prevent him from committing the crime. Maigret is intrigued but skeptical, unsure if the man is seeking help or trying to manipulate the situation. Soon after, Renée is found murdered, and suspicion immediately falls on Planchon. However, Maigret feels that the case is more complex than it appears. He digs into the couple's history and discovers that their marriage was marked by emotional abuse, manipulation, and resentment. Both partners had made each other miserable for years, creating a toxic environment. As Maigret interviews neighbours and acquaintances, he uncovers subtle clues that suggest someone else might have taken advantage of the couple's volatile relationship to commit the crime. In the end, Maigret solves the case by understanding the dynamics of the marriage and the emotions involved, delivering a conclusion that is both tragic and insightful. This case exemplifies Maigret's ability to look beyond surface-level evidence and focus on human behaviour. 11. Maigret and the Old Lady, 1950. This case brings Maigret to Normandy, where he is called by an elderly widow, Valentine Besson. She fears she might be murdered after her maid is found poisoned. Valentine lives with her two adult stepchildren, who are both desperate for money, and each harbours resentment toward their stepmother. As Maigret interviews the family, he learns that the maid was mistakenly poisoned with sleeping pills intended for Valentine. Suspicion falls on both stepchildren, who each have financial motives for wanting their stepmother dead. Maigret methodically untangles the relationships in the household, exposing jealousy, greed, and long-standing family grievances. In a twist, Maigret uncovers that the poisoning was not part of a calculated murder plot, but an impulsive act driven by frustration and desperation. The old lady herself had manipulated events to force Maigret to uncover family secrets and resolve underlying tensions. This case emphasizes Maigret's empathy and his ability to navigate complex emotions, especially within family dynamics. 12. Maigret's Mistake, 1953. Maigret investigates the murder of Louise Leboine, a glamorous and well-connected socialite found strangled in her apartment. Initially, it appears that her fiancé, an ambitious young man named Marcel, might be involved. As Maigret delves into the case, he uncovers layers of betrayal and hidden motives in Louise's social circle. Maigret discovers that Louise had been living beyond her means and was involved in multiple secret affairs, using her beauty and charm to manipulate wealthy men. However, the detective soon realizes that the crime was not simply about money or jealousy, it involved revenge and emotional manipulation. The investigation takes Maigret through Paris's high society, exposing the dark undercurrents of the glamorous world Louise inhabited. In the end, Maigret's insight into human nature helps him solve the case, identifying the murderer as someone who acted out of personal anguish rather than greed. This case highlights Maigret's ability to see beyond appearances and understand the complex motivations behind seemingly straightforward crimes. 13. Maigret and the Man on the Boulevard, 1953. The body of a well-dressed man is found in a cul-de-sac off a busy boulevard, stabbed to death. Identified as Louis Thoré, an ordinary office worker with no known enemies, the murder initially baffles Maigret. As Maigret investigates, he discovers that Thoré was not living the life his family believed. Although he claimed to be employed at a company, he had lost his job months ago. To maintain appearances, Thoré continued his daily routine, leaving home each morning as if going to work. Maigret's investigation reveals that Thoré frequented seedy bars and cheap hotels, meeting with suspicious characters. It becomes clear that the victim led a double life, concealing the truth from his wife and daughter. His activities, which seemed harmless at first, turn out to have dangerous connections to a criminal underworld. Maigret patiently reconstructs Thoré's final days, eventually uncovering a blackmail scheme involving stolen goods. The murderer turns out to be one of Thoré's acquaintances from the criminal world, who acted out of greed and fear. This case showcases Maigret's methodical approach, solving the mystery by understanding the hidden complexities of an ordinary man's life. 14. Maigret's Dead Man, 1948. One evening, Maigret receives a phone call from a distressed man who claims he is being followed and fears for his life. Before he can provide more details, the caller abruptly hangs up. Hours later, a man matching the caller's description is found murdered in a Paris street. The only clue Maigret has is the mysterious phone call. The investigation leads Maigret to a rural village where the victim was originally from. He discovers that the dead man, Albert Rochin, had recently returned to Paris after several years abroad, stirring old resentments and jealousy among the villagers. Maigret's inquiries reveal that Rochin had been involved in several shady ventures abroad, including smuggling. His return to France was not welcomed, especially by those who had benefited from his absence. Maigret pieces together a complex puzzle of betrayal and revenge. He eventually uncovers that the murderer is someone from the victim's past, driven by fear of exposure and retribution. The case illustrates Maigret's ability to follow slim leads and his skill in understanding how personal history shapes people's actions. 15. Maigret sets a trap. 1955. In this suspenseful case, Maigret is called in to catch a serial killer preying on women in the Montmartre district of Paris. The killer strikes seemingly at random, leaving no clues behind, which makes it difficult for the police to predict where he will strike next. Under intense public pressure, Maigret devises a risky plan. He sets a trap by deploying undercover policewomen in the area, hoping the killer will attempt another attack. The strategy pays off, and a suspect named Marcel Monsin is apprehended. However, Maigret is not fully convinced of Monsin's guilt. As he interrogates the suspect, he senses that Monsin is hiding something deeper, possibly mental instability or unresolved trauma. Maigret continues to probe, trying to understand the suspect's psyche. In a climactic twist, Maigret discovers that Monsin's crimes are rooted in his troubled childhood and his obsessive hatred toward women. The detective's psychological insights and persistence ultimately lead to the full confession, bringing the killing spree to an end. This case highlights Maigret's patience, intuition, and ability to confront the darker aspects of human nature. Conclusion, and there you have it. 15 of Maigret's most iconic cases, each one showcasing the brilliance and humanity of Georges Simenon's famous detective. From the murky canals to the bustling streets of Paris, Maigret's methodical approach and deep understanding of human nature always lead him to the truth. His cases are more than just puzzles. They explore the complexities of crime, morality, and justice. Whether solving murders or unraveling dark secrets, Maigret remains a timeless figure in crime fiction. If you enjoyed this journey through his most famous investigations, be sure to like, subscribe, and join us for more explorations into the world of mystery and intrigue.